friends, it's me, Miss Jess from church, and I'm super excited because I am going to read you one of my favorite books ever, and it's called The Big Picture of What God Has Always Wanted. Are you ready? All right, let's start. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and everything in them: sun, moon, stars, seas, land, mountains, grass, flowers, trees, fish, birds, animals, even creepy, crawly bugs. God liked the beautiful world he created very much. Can you think of something that God created? Good job. God also created people. God created people so that he could love them and they could love him. God wanted his people to live in friendship with him and with each other. He set things up so that living in friendship with God is the very best way to live. God placed the first man and the first woman in a wonderful garden and provided them with everything they needed. He told them to take care of the world he created, and he told them to go have families and fill up the whole planet with people who would love and enjoy him forever. Everything was very good. God desired that people find their highest happiness living with him. But God did not make people to be robots who had no choice. He gave them a choice. They could live in friendship with God by trusting his goodness, or they could live their own way and die trying. Sadly, God's people did not trust him. They selfishly disobeyed God and refused to do what he had said. They turned away from God, believing they could find happiness somewhere else. As more and more families began to fill the earth, more and more people chose to live their own way rather than God's way. They lied to each other, hurt each other, fought with each other, and even killed each other. People thought they did not need God anymore. They refused to follow his ways. They even began to worship statues of wood and stone that they had made. People began to get sick and die. This was not the way things were supposed to be. It made God both sad and angry to see the people he loved hurting themselves and each other. Soon, the whole world, the good world that God created, was not so good anymore. The people God loved needed to be rescued from their selfishness and all the hurt it caused. Oh no, let's see what happens next. So God put a plan in motion. God chose a man named Abraham and promised him that he would become the father of a great nation that God would bless. The nation was called Israel. God wanted the Israelites to be his special people so that through them he could make his love known to all peoples. Because Abraham believed God's promises, he was called the friend of God. Abraham didn't know it, but God planned that one of his great-great-great-grandchildren would come to make things right between people and God. God provided the people he loved with everything they needed to live in friendship with him. Commandments to teach them God's ways, priests to remind them of God's love and forgiveness, kings to lead and guide them, and prophets to encourage and correct them. Because of God's blessing, Israel became a great nation, just like God promised. But time after time, God's people turned away from him to live selfish lives. Rather than acting like God's special people, they acted like people who didn't even know God. Even though the prophets urged the people to turn back to God, they still refused to love him with all their hearts. Those same prophets began to tell of one who would come to make things right between people and God again. You see, God would not give up on the people he loved. God knew that as long as people lived their lives for themselves, they would continue to die and be separated from his love forever. So, God sent his son, Jesus, to tell people that he still loved them. One of Jesus' special names, Emmanuel, means God with us. Jesus came to show us what God is really like and what God has always wanted. Jesus did many good things for people to show them God's love. He healed the sick. He fed people when they were hungry. He worked many amazing miracles. He even raised people from the dead. Jesus loved all people, not just the best people. He even loved people who did bad things, which made some people angry. He liked to go to parties and tell stories of how God has always loved us and has always wanted us to come back to him. And Jesus loved little children. He wanted them to be his friends too. He said, "Let the little children come to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to everyone who comes to me like them." Jesus taught us how to live in friendship with God and each other. He said the most important commandment of all is to love God with all your heart. He also said to love other people like you love yourself. He knew that loving God and others is the very best way to live. Jesus also said he had the power to forgive people of their selfishness and wrongdoing. He promised that we could live with God now and forever if we believe in him. Here's what he said. He said, "Truly I tell you, everyone who believes in me has eternal life." Many people did believe in Jesus and they became his friends and followers. But others refused to believe in him. They said, "We will not have this man tell us what to do." So they arrested Jesus. They told lies about him. They beat him and spat on him. They killed him by nailing him to a big wooden cross. Everyone thought that was the end of Jesus. But Jesus didn't stay dead. He came back to life and lots of people saw him alive. Before he went back to heaven, Jesus gathered his friends together. He explained how it had always been God's plan for him to come to rescue people from their selfishness and death. He told them that he had to die for their sins and be raised from the dead in order to make things right between God and people again. Then he commanded his friends to go into all the world and tell everyone the good news of God's love and forgiveness. He told them to invite everyone to come back into friendship with God by believing him. And because they did, today the church is a community made up of people from all over the world. People who want to follow Jesus and learn from him how to live in a friendship with God and others. Like Jesus, the church shows God's love by helping, serving, praying, and caring for others. Through the church, God continues to invite everyone to be a part of his family. One day, God will make everything new. He will make everything good again, just like it was in the beginning. In the kingdom of heaven, there will be no more fighting or wars, no more sadness or sickness or death, and no more selfishness. The people who refuse to live in friendship with God will not be in God's kingdom. God has prepared a place for them where their selfishness cannot hurt anyone else ever again. When God makes everything new, people from every nation will live with God and each other in peace forever. The whole world will be filled with people who know God and follow his ways. And God will love his people, and his people will love him, just like he always wanted. The end. Bye, friends.